In today's video, we're going to be diving into the upcoming pattern where we have multiple shots of cold air expected into the central and eastern United States over the next couple of weeks. And we're going to be pinpointing three particular storm signals that I'm watching that could bring about snowfall, maybe even a major snowstorm or two. And really, all three of them are around the Christmas time frame, with the final one being potentially on Christmas Eve into Christmas Day, which would be absolutely insane. So let's just dive into things. And as we're taking a look at this afternoon, into this evening, this is 4 p.m. I'm making this video a little later than this, but we see a pretty strong low over northern New Jersey here. Cold front stretching down. This is bringing heavy thunderstorms along these areas. I mentioned that a couple days ago that this could bring some thunderstorm activity, and sure enough, we're seeing that throughout Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina area in particular. Also, we should start to see some snowfall pick up in some of these areas. I just looked at current radar before I started this video, and we're not seeing as filled in as what this model is showing. We're starting to see some snowfall in Pennsylvania and New York in particular, but it doesn't nearly look like this for West Virginia, Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee. Maybe some flurries coming down, if any. Now, as we move towards the overnight hour, what we're going to see is heavier snowfall pickup for areas of Pennsylvania, New York, and into New England. Even some lake effect snowfall for Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New York there. As really, we have entered into a severely cold pattern for a lot of the eastern United States, as the cold is really filled into this area. So that is the overall look. We have some warmth pushing northward for the west. This is creating the imbalance that is causing the cold in the east. That is the overall setup right now. It's not going to be super long-lived, because already by Friday, the 13th here, what we're seeing is some cooler temperatures and storminess starting to get going for the west. This cool down already lifting off in the east as we have some warmer air pushing from the south. Here, we're still left with moderately cold air for these areas, but not nearly as cold as it is going to be tomorrow on Thursday night. As we take a look at Saturday, December 14th here, we do have a very weak low between Iowa and Missouri, seeing some snowfall here for Michigan, Wisconsin, and Minnesota, mostly the upper peninsula of Michigan there, obviously. We see out west more snow, more rain, more cold overall for Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, California, and Nevada. So this is going to overall encourage warmth to a lot of the east. We see some of this taking place across the Rockies, but also starting to influence areas across the southeast as well. Keep in mind, we could have more thunderstorms and severe weather potential on Saturday here for areas of Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, maybe even like northern Mississippi. We're going to be watching this very, very closely. As we keep going, I want to take us straight towards Sunday on December 15th, and what we're seeing is some rainfall now encompassing a lot of the Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, and down through the deeper south areas. The Rockies seeing quite a bit of snowfall here. And when we look at your overall jet stream, I mean, we have a bit of a trough in the west, bit of a ridge there in the central, and then a little bit of a trough again for the east. So not quite as warm along the eastern states as it is for areas further inland. Monday on December 16th, what we see is a stronger low between Missouri and Illinois. This is again bringing a cold front underneath, where we could see some severe weather or thunderstorms in general. There is a little bit of snowfall from Minnesota and Wisconsin there taking place to the north, and we still have some northwest snowfall taking place as well up there. As we reach towards Tuesday on December 17th, we see that a huge temperature battle is happening here in the west, where the warmth is pushing from the south, obviously. So we see something like this. But we also have quite a bit of cold trying to kind of meet it in the middle. What we're getting as a result of this is a more neutral P&A, I would call it. It's not positive or negative. And we're seeing some instability in there. Some snowfall for the Rockies, some storminess there in the Pacific Northwest. This overall causes instability. What it also causes is not a ridge or trough in the east, but much more of like a very zonal flow for most of the eastern states, where we're very flat with this, bringing no trough, no ridge, just kind of an average pattern. We do have a relatively strong low over the Great Lakes here, 994. This is bringing some snowfall to the Great Lakes area, and also quite a bit of rainfall to the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast here. A little bit of an interesting point in the forecast. By Wednesday the 18th, though, this is what happens. That warmth eventually wins out west. So that battle gets won by the warmth in this instance, and we see cold air beginning its kind of dive into the central states, and it will be on the move towards the east. We do have this little bit of a warm push happening up the southeast coast out ahead of this, which is very standard. So your jet stream is doing something like this, but that cold air is moving towards the east coast, and we should see it reach the east coast. Even some Midwest snow showers happening in there underneath that cool down. By Thursday, the 19th, here's snowstorm signal number 1. Again, like I said in the beginning of the video, there is some snowfall popping up. I don't think this is a full-blown nor'easter snowstorm here by any means. This could be a lot closer to the coast, and if it was tucked up right here, we'd likely see a heavier situation somewhere in here. But we're not really seeing that on this model right now, and that's kind of what I meant at the beginning of this video, that there's potential, because there's no reason this can't be 50 or 100 miles closer to the coast, maybe even on the coast. Still a relatively decent low, and we could see heavier snowfall for these areas. Nevertheless, we do see snow there on the 19th into the 20th, where we kind of get a major New England snowstorm here, and New York into New England, even Connecticut, Massachusetts, and then obviously everywhere north of there as well. This is a perfect point to point out that we have a very strong positive P&A here, and a very, as a result, strong trough in the east. So again, positive P&A brings a massive trough here into the eastern states with some snowfall there in the northeast. Pretty classic look, if you ask me. As we keep going, 20th, really cold in the east again. 21st here, still really cold in the east. 22nd, really cold in the east. Maybe another multi-day major cooldown leading up to Christmas. Believe it or not, this is storm signal number 2 out here. It's pretty far offshore, but there's no reason, again, we're going to see some model guidance later on, but there's no reason it can't be closer to the coast. And if we have this amount of cold air, this jet stream would need to look different. The jet stream is way offshore. This is 276 hours out, though. So if we perhaps, as a, instead of that, saw more of a jet stream closer to the coast here, we could get this storm moving right up along that, like storm number 1, in which case we would see more of a chance of snowfall in this pocket. So there's snowstorm chance number 2 before Christmas. And here comes Christmas Eve, where we have a low. This is more of an inland storm, but it's nearby Toronto, Canada, basically. And we see quite a bit of snowfall happening for the Great Lakes and also into the northeast and mid-Atlantic, as we still have colder air in place. As we reach Christmas morning, it's pretty weak, but we have light to moderate snowfall happening for a lot of the mid-Atlantic and the northeast here. Could be a white Christmas for some folks if we see a setup like this. White Christmas odds and overall snowfall within that, I would say 7 days before Christmas up to Christmas Day is way elevated compared to normal. We see multiple snowstorm signals, and models are all on board for very cold conditions, basically from that 20th straight through the 25th time frame, which is going to put us in as good a chance of any at this long of a range of seeing potentially a white Christmas. So we're going to be watching that pattern very, very closely. So there's that 3 storm signals that we're seeing. I want to take a look at the European model, though, and get a comparison. We see storm number, well, that's not even storm number 1, really. It's not storm signal number 1, but that is storm number 1, really. Here is storm number 1 for real. And this one, we see much further inland. Much stronger, though, 997. We do get snowfall. It's just for Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, and Canada, and a bit of the kind of northeast here with some ice. We do see a very strong positive P&A out here, so there's no reason why this can't be a lot colder. We start to see a cutoff low in a lot of these models where we get some cold air moving in. There's a southeast push of warm air, so you get this really weird dynamic, but this area of cold kind of cuts off and moves towards the southeast, while the rest of the trough kind of moves up. And that's typically not a very reliable look for cold or snow. Here it is. So you see how that main trough kind of lifts off. Canada gets a major snowstorm. We really get that cutoff low look. We do get storm number 2 developing along that. Little too far offshore. And this isn't going to be sustainable for snowfall to occur. We need deeper cold than this. So we have the cold on the GFS model. We have the storms on the European model, but they're really not matching up. Again, this is very close to a hit. 986. It just needs to trend a little bit further west, which we have seen happen before. I think that there's a chance we could see one of these model runs really pop up with at least one of these three storms showing up as an East Coast snowstorm. Wouldn't surprise me one bit. Now we get the deep cold air between the 22nd, 23rd, 24th. Here's Christmas. And we also have a major low a little further north in this instance than Toronto, where the GFS model had it, this little L. But we still end up with some snow showers around the Midwest, Great Lakes, Mid-Atlantic, Northeast. It's just a little warmer, and that low is a little further north. But overall, these models are on board with the same idea. I would say the interesting thing is we have storm signals. Again, I talked about it yesterday, and it goes in both ways, both favorable and unfavorable for snow, but you don't want to pay too much attention to the specific details. You want to really key in on the overall pattern that the model is showing and realize that lows and highs and, air masses can shift over time, especially when we're talking about, 7, 10, 15 days out. And that's exactly what we're looking at here, is a situation where these storms could easily move further west, and if only one of those three does, we could end up with a major snowfall situation, let alone if two or even three. That would be absolutely crazy, but the cold air is there for the most part on both the models. The storms just not really connecting, but the storms are there too. So we have the two puzzle pieces. We just need to kind of click them into place and see if that'll happen. Going to be very interesting to track with you guys. Let's look at the total precipitation, and we see that the Northwest gets quite a bit here. Also, the East cashing in on quite a bit of precipitation as well. We get multiple coastal systems. We have a lot of rainfall happening now. We get a couple of inland systems. It's going to be a lot more active moving forward in the precipitation department, and that is why we get above average precipitation, particularly for the Northeast, upper Midwest, and into the Great Lakes. But really, if you're in these areas here, you're doing quite well. It's mostly here where we're still holding on to some of that dry air. The deep south and Gulf states here, unfortunately. The Northwest getting a lot of precipitation, but not nearly average, as they average a whole lot there. Now, the snowfall in the GFS model, again, none of these really connect. We do see some snowfall from, I think, all three on the GFS model, but it only leads to a few inches, maybe some plowable snow for the mountains of West Virginia, or perhaps up here in New York, like the Adirondacks or Green Mountains or White Mountains. But this could look dramatically more snowy if we see everything come together, which again is a huge question mark. Out west, we're seeing a little bit of a decrease in the total snowfall again, kind of like we saw a couple weeks ago. Every time it gets really cold in the east, I feel like things lighten up out west with that positive P&A. It brings high pressure, warmer temperatures, and overall less storms moving through, and that's what leads to less snowfall. So this kind of validates the model, calling for an overall positive P&A pattern moving forward. The European model, on the other hand, we do see quite a bit more for the northern plains, upper Midwest, Great Lakes, Mid-Atlantic, Northeast. Again, some plowable snow, especially in the higher elevations in here. The Great Lakes still due to bring, another 1, 2, 3 feet of snowfall to some of these spots over the coming days and weeks as we kind of finish things up. And even the northern plains and upper Midwest do see some pretty decent snowfall. I should say that we do see a lot more snow in the Rockies, the Cascades, and the Sierra Nevada on the European model here, which has really done a better job of pinpointing the specifics with storms and cold air timing and everything than the GFS model overall. Now, for the temperature pattern, we'll start with the GFS model. We get this really cold shot of like an Arctic intrusion here for tomorrow afternoon. Already by Friday, things are slightly warming up in areas. We still have the East Coast and some of the Great Lakes seeing the coldest air, but the South is starting to warm, and we see that really start for Saturday, where really only the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast see the cold air anymore. By Sunday, there's still a little bit of that Mid-Atlantic and Northeast cold air left over, but that is going to die out by Monday, where we see very warm temperatures return. Tuesday, quite a bit of the same. Also Wednesday, but Thursday we get more cold air moving in again. This is for Thursday the 19th. So cold air moving back into the east. And look out west. Again, I'm like a broken record, but positive P&A instantly brings colder air back into the east. That is why that is such an important thing for me to note all the time. It's such a huge player in our weather here in the United States. As we keep going, Friday is cold. Saturday the 21st, even colder. Sunday the 22nd, very cold. Monday the 23rd. Tuesday the 25th or 24th, we're kind of warming up again, followed by another really cold air mass for Wednesday, Christmas Day on the 25th. Thursday the 26th, we're still cold along the East Coast and even into the 27th. So overall colder times ahead, even on this GFS model. The European model, we get this big cool down, big warm up, big cool down for like the 19th, 20th, 21st, but we get a brief warm up in between before we cool back down for the 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th. Christmas a little bit warmer on the European model. Look at this, near normal for the East Coast, pretty much warmer everywhere else. Big question mark there. This is one of the first model runs I've seen in like 3 weeks where the European model has looked a little bit warmer, I would say, than the GFS model, which is pretty interesting. The GFS model has been a lot more reserved about the cold air than the European model has been. The European model has been successful and actually been correct about the cold air that it's been calling for, that the GFS model has been hesitant to show. But we'll have to see what happens now that the rules are reversed. Will the GFS model be more correct about the cold, or will the European be more correct about maybe a little less cold, maybe a bit more marginal with that cold air? Time will tell. We have big videos coming up every single day, so be sure to subscribe for those daily weather videos. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.